What if one AI agent could not only use tools and data by itself, but also calls another agent whatever it needs extra help for? This is exactly where MCP and A2A come into the picture. And understanding these two completely can change the way you build AI systems. In this tutorial, we are going to learn the difference between MCP and A2A in very simple and in a practical way. So guys, if you want to know more about it, then watch this video till the end. In this video, you will understand what MCP is and what is A2A, and how both are different, where each one of them is used, and why both are important in modern AI applications. So by the end of this tutorial, you will not just know the difference between MCP and A2A, but you will actually know how to use them in real project. Now before we move on to the session, here is the agenda. First, we are going to learn about what is MCP protocol. Then we are going to explore about A2A protocol. After that, we are going to understand some of the key differences between them. Later on, we are going to understand a real-world use case of both. And finally, we are going to do a recap on both of them and what is a practical takeaway of these two protocols. Now, before we move ahead in the session, here is a short quiz to test your knowledge. Now, the question is, MCP is primarily used for, and your options are designing websites, connecting agents to tools and context, or C, editing videos, or D, training hardware devices. Please mention your answers in the comment section below. So guys, before we delve into this tutorial, just a quick info for you. Simplilearn has got professional certificate program in generative AI and machine learning. You're going to learn from the IIT faculties and industry experts. Also guys, you are going to attend master classes delivered by IIT Guwahati faculty. You're going to experience campus immersion at IIT Guwahati. And finally, you're going to get an alumni status from EN ICT Academy and also IIT Guwahati. So guys, hurry up now and join the course. The course link is mentioned in the description box. So let's get started. So guys, let us first try to understand what are these protocols. Let us first look at the MCP protocol. If I talk about MCP, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And this is a standard protocol for connecting an AI app or an agent to tools, data sources, prompts, and workflows. In MCP, servers can expose tools, resources, and prompts, while clients can provide things like routes and sampling. In simple words, if I have to say, MCP helps an AI system to use external capabilities safely and in a structured way. That's why it's called as Model Context Protocol. Now, if you look into this diagram all over here, you can see there is a remote data source, there is a local data source. And this is MCP client all over here. Now this server takes up the data from here and it communicates, the client communicates with the server through MCP protocol. Similarly, it is communicating with this server through remote protocol, which is MCP protocol, and similarly all over here. And then it works accordingly. Now we will deep dive into this given protocol as we move ahead throughout this tutorial. But before that, let's try to get a brief overview about agent-to-agent protocol. Now, if I talk about this protocol, this is meant for situations where one agent needs to discover another agent. And it has to understand what it can do, send work to it, and receive updates or artifacts of final results. If I say that Google has recently announced explicitly that A2A is designed so that AI agents can communicate, exchange information securely, and coordinate actions, it's also in complement with your MCP protocol. Now, the easiest way to understand this difference is think of MCP like agent talking to tools and context, where A2A is a scenario where agent is talking to another agent. A Google developer guide uses exactly this progression. First, the agent connects to the system and data with MCP, and then for outside expertise or remote specialist, it uses A2A. So this is the given progression or the flow how A2A and MCP are complementing each other. A very simple analogy if I have to say, let's say imagine you have a manager agent. So with MCP, the manager can read files, query a database, call a calculator, use a search tool, access structured prompts. But with A2A, the manager can ask pricing, ask legal agent, or even ask a travel booking agent to work on the complex task, or even it could ask to the specialist agent which is working remotely. MCP gives abilities, and with A2A, it gives you collaboration. Now, let us try to also think a bit more in this way what actually MCP includes. So, guys, if I talk about that, so according to the MCP docs, if I have to open this, now, guys, I'm at the official documentation of MCP. And according to this documentation, MCP includes these major pieces. We call it as resources, tools, prompts, and plus you get client-side features like routes and sampling. Now, what are tools all over here? Let us try to understand that. So guys, if I talk about tools, then you can think about tools as an actions that an AI model can invoke, such as querying a database, calling APIs, or performing computations. MCP says that tools are discoverable and model invocable. It means that model can invoke it. One given example I would like to tell you. For example, let's say we have something like this. Let's say get customer orders, or let's say if you are trying to search dogs, or let's say you are trying to send email, or let's say you are trying to run a SQL. Now, these things are called as tools. So you can think about this in this way. Now, if I talk about resources, guys, so for resources, you can think about this, that these are the contextual data which is exposed to the clients, such as files, schemas, or app-specific information. For example, this could be your product catalog, or it could be PDF content, or it could be database schema. Now, next thing we have all over here in MCP, we call it as prompts. Now, prompts are reusable prompt templates which is exposed by the server. MCP describes them as typically user controlled rather than automatically invoked. For this example could be, let's say somebody could ask you to summarize a document or generate release notes or review the codes. So we can write something like this, summarize the notes, or you can say generate release notes, or you can say review the code. Next up we have all over here, these are called as routes. So what are routes? So basically routes let the client tell the server which file system areas are relevant. So it allows only the assistant to work inside project, or you can talk about it is working under this respective thing. So let's say if we have this folder called project, then routes, you can think about this in such a way. So let's say if you create one assistant, so it is going to allow that assistant to work inside this project directory. And let's say for example, it could, if you are working on generalizing a document or searching any document, so it is going to go through this directory. And next thing, it could, let's say if you are working inside, let's say reviewing the code and all, it could go inside the SRC folder. So these are called as the routes. Next up we have something called as sampling. So what does sampling do, guys? Basically sampling allows nested LLM calls inside MCP features. And the specification notes are there that this should be human in the loop for the safety. So you can think about sampling in that way. So basically all your LLM calls, you can just think about this, or in more precise way, we call it as nested LLM calls. So these are our respective thing with context to the MCP protocol. Now, let me show you the official documentation of the A2A protocol. So if you go to the core concepts of the A2A protocol, you can find that A2A is built around agents which are involved in discovering and collaborating with other agents. And the official documentation describes a few core concepts. For example, these ideas could be like an agent publishes an agent card, which is typically available. And it will be available in the folder. For example, it could look something like this. So you can think about this at, for example, what well known, and then it could be agent card.json. Basically, it's a JSON file. Then what happens all over here? So one agent can send messages to the another remote agent, and it may reply directly or create a task. Now that task can stream status updates and artifacts. And clients can fetch task state, subscribe to task updates, or cancel task. Then these are the respective thing. So if I talk about agent card, it describes what remote agent does and how to contact it. And the ADK docs explicitly say that A2A agent has its own agent card commonly at this respective folder. Then you can think about something all over here. Next thing is message sending. Now, what is message sending? So all over here, we can think about this in such a way that one agent sends a request to another using the A2A protocol. And the remote side can return a direct message or a task for longer running work. And if I talk about tasks all over here, then you can think about this in such a way that, in relevance to the agent-to-agent protocol, it has much stronger concept of task lifecycle than MCP. And the specification includes like you'll have operations like all over here. For example, it could be sending a message, or it could be like, for example, all over here, it could be get task, it could be like cancel task, it could be like subscribe to task. So all these things you can find all over here under the task section. Now, next thing what you can find all over here is called as artifacts. Now, what are artifacts, guys? So a remote agent can produce artifacts during or after execution, such as structured outputs, reports, or generated file. And a task stream can include an artifact, update events all over here. Now, this is the overall architecture, or you can think about what does agent-to-agent protocol includes, or what does an MCP protocol includes. So if I talk about the flow all over here, how the MCP flow is happening, so you can think about this in such a way that, let's say if a user is talking to an AI app, let's say all over here, we call it as user, and let's say if talks to an AI app, okay. So what is happening? So AI app acts as an MCP client. We can call it as an MCP client. Now, MCP client connects to the MCP servers, and MCP servers expose tools, resources, and prompts. So in the diagram also, it was similarly like that. So you can say it connects to the MCP client. Now, an MCP client connects to the MCP servers. Now, MCP servers exposed tools, resources, and prompts. Now, AI uses those capabilities to answer or act. So, using the model context protocol. Now, let's try to discuss about the A2A flow all over here. So, let's say in the A2A, what is happening, guys? Let's say user is talking to a primary agent, and primary agent discovers a remote agent using agent card that we have discussed earlier. Now, the primary agent sends a message or task, and remote agent works on it. So you can think about this. Primary agent is going to send a respective message. So we can call it as sends message, and then it shares this message or task to the remote agent, and remote agent works on it. Now, primary agent receive message, task, status, and artifacts. So this is all present all over here. Now, guys, if I talk about the primary agent all over here, so what does a primary agent do? So primary agent basically discovers a remote agent using the agent card, and the primary agent sends a message or task. Then a remote agent works on it, and primary agent receives the message, task status, you can think about it, or you can say the artifact. So after this, you can consider that primary agents, it is going to receive, it receives tasks, it receives something called as, you can think about status and artifacts. Now, the main difference if I have to highlight all over here, so MCP standardizes access to external tools and context, whereas A2A standardizes collaboration between independent agent. Now, most of the time people ask this question, when to use MCP and when to use agent-to-agent protocol. So, for example, let's say if you have to think about this in that way. So, for example, you can use MCP when your agent needs to connect to databases, file system, or any SaaS tool or internal APIs or any prompt libraries if you are using it. You can also use it to connect it to the business documents or any search and utility tools all over here. So MCP is perfect in that scenario. Best use case could be, let's say there is an AI assistant reading company documentation, and coding assistance is using the file system and Git tools. So basically it supports your coding reviews and it helps to understand the code and all. You can also take another use case. Let's say if you have a support bot which is accessing the CRM tools, or there is an analytics assistant which is querying SQL and dashboards. So the rule of thumb is, if you ask yourself something like, how do I let my agent use a tool or a data source, then the answer is actually MCP. So now if I talk about when to use A2A, then you can think about this. You will use A2A when your system needs multiple specialist agent, or let's say if you are requiring remote delegation, or if you're requiring cross-team or cross-vendor agent communication, or any task progress update or any task cancellation. And also you have structured agent discovery. So best use cases could be like one orchestrating agent calling a finance agent and a legal agent, or a customer agent is there, basically a customer support agent which is escalating to a return agent, or there is a procurement agent asking multiple vendor agent for quotes, or there is a travel planner agent which is calling hotel, flight and visa specialist agent. Now the rule of thumb is, let's say if the question is how do I let one agent work with another, then your answer is A2A protocol. So do I let one agent, then you will use A2A. If you're talking about MCP protocol, so the main purpose where you can use MCP is if you want to connect AI tools and context, then you can use MCP. Now if you are, let's say if you're trying to connect one agent to another, such that it talks to tools, resources, prompts, workflows, or any remote or specialist agent, then you have to work on that with the help of agent to agent protocol. Now the agent card is basically exposed by the agent, which it tries to discover the remote agent. Now most of the time you can ask this question, do they compete with each other? I would say not really. In the official A2A documentation, Google explicitly says that A2A protocol complements the MCP protocol. And that is one of the most practical way to think about it. Modern production system may look like this. Let's say your main agent is using MCP to access files, tools, database, and prompts. And the same agent uses the A2A to communicate with a specialized remote agent. So this is kind of a hybrid pattern, and this is actually reflected in the ADK guidance. Now guys, I hope so you would have got a brief idea regarding agent to agent protocol and what is basically MCP protocol and how they are different from one another. So guys, that was all for today's session. I hope so you would have enjoyed our today's video on MCP versus A2A. And also guys, if you like these kind of videos, then do not forget to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell icon. Thank you guys for watching this video.